couple of things regarding how politics and social media have converged. We started talking about the benefits, then talked a little bit about the challenges, and finally came to a few conclusions, and also addressed how the role of official communicators in media has changed. It's very interesting. Our group actually has people from the National Security Council, and they brought in a very, very interesting perspective about what it means to govern from the country's point of view. Anyway, some of the benefits that we talked about from the citizen point of view was that, number one, we have live, real-time politics information to news. For Malaysians, this has been quite important for us because there's a strong cynicism to the objectivity of media. I think we all can relate to that. Not everybody looks at the star and goes like, oh, that's the absolute truth, right? So we look for non-censored kinds of news items, and we would typically find this online and in social media circles. Not only that, we now have direct access to politicians. Many of the newer, younger MPs, even the older MPs, Dr. Chua Soilek recently started his Facebook page, to much to everybody's surprise. But anyway, we now have direct access to politicians. So for politicians, it becomes a platform to engage their constituents. But for citizens, their transparency means accountability. We can now hold them more accountable. So this leads into the third thing, which we talked about, how social media has given citizens a voice. It empowers us to give our views. We can hold the politicians accountable, and the political process has become more transparent. I think what's, for me personally, I was sharing with the group, this was interesting that because of the level of social media permeation among young people especially, we have actually noticed participation and engagement in the political process where previously young people would not be so interested. I would actually term it as such, that it's actually spurring a sense of patriotism, that our young people now actually care a little bit more about the country because they can have a voice. And talk about voter registration, for example. There are a lot of grassroots voter registration drives that are happening today that would not be common just 5 to 10 years ago. Right, so those are some of the benefits that we talked about. Now, when we talk about the challenges, we immediately zeroed in on the reliability of the news items circulating in social media. For example, not everything is verified, but it is easily disseminated, so not everyone is credible as well. What happens then is social media can often be a knee-jerk emotional reaction based more on emotions than fact. So there's a lot of room for manipulation and misinformation happening, especially if you believe in conspiracy theories. The term conspiracy theory was brought up, how a few individuals can actually spread some misinformation and get it disseminated because it packs emotional punch, right? And of course then the question to national security came in. I thought this was very, very interesting. We talked about how it's a challenge for people who are in charge of national security. What you define by national security is up to you, but we talked about how governments had the problem or the issue of containing revolutions. What if it was a revolution that was based on misinformation? What if it was detrimental to the country as a whole? Social media can spread the message out and cause governments to have huge problems on their hand. But at the same time, you know, if you were to climb down there, you're seen as authoritarian, dictator, and all that. The question of Iran was brought up. Iran was a case where people attributed social media to the fall of the government, if I'm correct. Of course, the counter-argument is it wrong if people want to change a government that doesn't want to be changed? That's also the other flip side that we were talking about. So we kind of came to a conclusion, a consensus at least, that it's a question on whether people are ready for democracy, depending on the social demographics of the society at that time. Now, how does this change the role of official communicators or media? For us, I think we talked about how we needed to continue to advise our bosses or politicians not to flip off so easily. Sometimes things become headlines tomorrow and it becomes a serious issue. The role of official communications and media is still maintained on the basis that we are confirming and we are credible sources of information still. Everything can be spread online, Facebook, Twitter, and such, but until you hear it from the horse's mouth, it may not be credible. So there is still a role for official communications. Not only that, there's also a role for elaboration and explanation or moderation. I was naughty, I was using the word spin, didn't get a good reaction, but generally, if you tweet in 140 characters that this, everybody in this room knows about spin, you don't pretend to be these ethical saints of PR that you don't do spin, please. But we did talk about how tweets are 140 characters. When you issue an announcement, a politician issues an announcement, it's only 140 characters. The role of official media then comes in to elaborate and expand on that policy, what it means, what its impact is, the statistical information behind it, the research and such. I thought it was really positive that at the end of the day, we generally came to a consensus also that this is still overall a benefit to the country in the long term. I think open, transparent communication empowered by social media is definitely beneficial to a country's political maturity in the long term. So those are our thoughts. And